So, the Bears really slaughtered those Dolphins last night, huh? What? That's terrible. Who in their right mind would bring bears to the beach? Welcome to another episode of the Unmasked History of Scooby-Doo, the podcast where we delve into the mystery of Scooby-Doo media, getting clues from people who helped bring our favorite mystery-solving dog to life on various platforms, and maybe eating some Scooby snacks along the way. I'm your host, Alexa Lawler.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
And it would have been mine if it hadn't been to those meddling kids.
Gang, we've just been handed our next mystery.
Blasted meddling kids.
Hey, Scooby fans! I'm super excited for this week's episode because this week on the podcast we have Nick Palatas, who, of course, played the role of Shaggy in the live action TV films Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins and Scooby-Doo Curse of the Lake Monster. I don't think any more of an introduction is needed, but I had a lot of fun chatting with Nick, and hopefully you guys enjoy listening too. Hey Nick, how's it going?
It's going great, Alexa. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Of course.
So, I typically like to start off with a quick 3-question trivia game if you're up for it.
I would love to do trivia. My dad and I watched Jeopardy growing up, and we're like a trivia tag team, so I'm ready, hopefully.
Ooh,
I guess
perfect.
it depends on the category.
Well, all based on Scooby-Doo here.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Not like, what's the scientific name of the cricket? Because I probably wouldn't get that.
Yeah, nothing too hard. So hopefully to start off with an easy one here, what is Shaggy's real name?
Norville Rogers. My goodness, I would hope I know that one.
And question 2, what is the name of the book that the principal gives to Shaggy at the beginning of The Mystery Begins?
Oh my gosh. Um, Wow, I actually don't remember. I remember he was a big stamp collector guy, but uh yeah, no, I'm gonna have to say in the last decade or more since we filmed it, I just don't remember.
Philately is fun.
That's it. Philately is fun. Yep. Hey, the stamp collecting thing, I got that at least. Partial credit.
Definitely. Um, and the last question for the trivia is what is the name of the witch that created the lake monster in Curse of the Lake Monster?
Uh Velma, because she inherited or indwelt her, so I'm going with that. I know that's not the correct answer, but that's that's the best I got.
Fair enough. Wanda Grubwort.
There we go. Wanda Grubwort. It's like when you say it, it all comes rushing back to me, but until then, no.
Fair enough.
As you can tell, I don't watch it all that much.
What do you mean you don't watch it every weekend?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Um, so to start off the general questions, what's your relationship to Scooby-Doo? Did you grow up watching?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I was born in '88, so uh I'm not too, I guess, young for Scooby-Doo because I don't know. It seems like nowadays Scooby-Doo doesn't have the same clout that it did back then. Back when it was, original Hanna-Barbera, and we used to watch Saturday morning cartoons were like a big deal. I don't think that's a big deal anymore, but I could be out of touch. Um, but yeah, growing up, Scooby-Doo was absolutely a part of it. I used to watch all those kinds of shows. I would watch the Flintstones, I watched the Jetsons, I watched Johnny Quest. Oh man, that was good stuff too. So like all of those old Hanna-Barbera and shows of that ilk. Um, yeah, I loved it.
And do you have a personal memory related to Scooby-Doo at all?
A personal you mean before I became Shaggy, like from my childhood? I remember I think there was an episode about like the Bermuda Triangle that freaked me out pretty bad. I really really liked A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, that series. Um, and just the theme song, like, or the intro song to A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, like, I could probably still to this day, quote it. I could still probably remember all the words. Um, yeah.
Perfect. And what was your experience for the audition process for The Mystery Begins?
Man, the audition process was weird. Yeah, I mean, auditioning, the first audition is kind of just like everything else. You go in. Now, there was a bit more stakes in this one just because it was for Shaggy and Scooby Doo. And, like, who isn't going to freak out when they've got a possible audition for that? Um, so I went in the first time and just did what I could for it, and I ended up getting a call back. And the second time, I just I don't even know if I can say it, but I remember Brian Levant, who was our director, said that he was like, he needs to be more of a stoner type. And those weren't his exact words. I'm not going to quote him verbatim because that's like kind of just an easy way of saying it, but it was just hilarious to me because that's not who I am at all. And and yeah, I guess Brian Levant just saw the potential for me to be that, and kind of went with it. And then throughout, I ended up getting, I think, another callback, and then after that, we went to screen test, and it was like a chemistry read with the other people. Um, Man, I think at the chemistry read, I think there was one guy there also playing for Shaggy that I was like, "Oh man, that guy's totally gonna get it. He's way better suited for this." Uh, and then and then I ended up getting it anyway. So yeah, I mean, pretty emotional when I found out I got it, but the audition process was just a lot of fun.
And had you ever met Kate, Haley, or Robbie prior to the screen test?
Huh. Um, I don't think so. I guess it's possible because I don't know when you're growing up in Hollywood and in the actors circles, you do end up kind of meeting a lot of people, provided you're in those circles. And since I was trying to associate there, I might have met them before at like a get together or something, a party that somebody was having, but not that I specifically remember. No, we certainly didn't become close until the movies themselves.
And you mentioned that you thought that the other guy was gonna get it, but was there a point when you felt really confident in your audition and that you might get it?
I mean, as confident as you can be. Um, it's always a toss up because there's a lot of times that as an actor you go into a room and you're like, I absolutely nailed that. Goodness gracious, I killed that audition. Like, that was perfect, exactly what I want. Everybody was laughing, and then you never hear back from them at all. And then there are the times when you're like, oh wow, I completely butchered it. There's no way I'm going to hear from them, and then you end up booking that role. So, like, I was as confident as you could be. uh, but again, it's best not to count your chickens before they hatch, I guess.
Definitely. And what was your reaction when you did get the call saying that you had got it?
I actually remember pretty vividly. I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were just hanging out, and I got a phone call, and I didn't know who it was from. Just, random number popped up, and I answered it, and they told me I got the role, and I kind of said, oh my gosh, thank you," and I hung up, and I literally, I think I burst into tears. uh, like happy tears, obviously, but like it was crazy. Very emotional time. I couldn't believe it. Um, yeah, you've got to have had some of those moments in your life, right, where something happens to you that you never would have thought would have happened.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite thing about the character of Shaggy?
Uh, I mean, honestly, just kind of the innocence with which he views the world. Um, Shaggy, Norville, whatever you want to call him, is just it, he as pessimistic as he is, because like he's always afraid that something's going to happen or whatever, at the same time he views the world with such an innocence, and he has such a great attitude as far as just always uh knowing that he can have fun in any circumstance, and like he doesn't ever let it really get to him. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's got PTSD or anything, certainly, which you could. uh Yeah, he just approaches everything from a lighthearted manner, and I really liked that about him. And besides, I love food. Who doesn't love food? So that's great too.
And was there anything in particular that you wanted to bring to your interpretation of him?
Um, when bringing bringing a cartoon character to life, there's a lot of interpretation that has to go into it because you can't be a cartoon, right? But I just kind of wanted to give all that same energy, but as realistic as it could be. And again, that same innocence, and what that would really look like in a human being as opposed to in a cartoon. Still giving that character some depth. I mean, obviously you can't go too deep uh in that kind of thing. But um yeah, just uh, interpretive wise, I just really wanted to be true to him while also bringing him more down to earth.
And, Shaggy's voice is obviously not your natural voice. How did you develop that?
Like, man, I just watched a ton of the cartoons, and like I tried my best. Um yeah, kind of just I'm so rusty, and I apologize if that offended your ears. I don't just like I don't watch it every weekend. I don't practice the voice every weekend either. But I did for a long time. I practiced that voice. I watched the cartoons over and over and over again, and um, tried to imitate Casey Kasem as much as possible while still understanding that it's my voice, and it is a different take on Shaggy in general. So yeah, I just kind of did that. I didn't do the Matthew Lillard thing because I heard that the way he got into it was by like screaming his voice out to where he didn't have a voice, and then what was kind of left was the Shaggy. Um, I just kind of went into it, and just when I started doing the voice, I just fell into the character at the same time.
And was it ever difficult to keep that up throughout all of filming?
Sure. Especially there were some times where we would have to be wet and cold. There were some times when it was a really hot day, and all of those things are going to change the elasticity of your vocal cords to a degree. And so, doing that, it was a little tough. And I drank a lot of tea with honey. It's an old trick that singers use too. Because I used to be in show and jazz choir and all that stuff when I was in school. But yeah, just keep the vocal cords loose and limber, and be able to sustain it as much as possible. But it was during that I also realized exactly how much musicians go through. Because man, if you are like a professional singer musician, whether it's Taylor Swift or any of the really popular singers, when you're on tour and when you're doing that 24/7, and your entire livelihood is based on your voice, like I can't imagine the pressure that they must feel. So
For sure. And you touched
yeah.
on it a little bit, but what is it like to try and bring a cartoon character to life in a live action movie?
Honestly, it's great. Again, you have to kind of understand your limitations, but I mean, I had Brian Levant for a director, and he'd done that before. You know, he the Flintstones movie that he did prior to our movies. He also, he directed Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even that. Obviously, he's not bringing a cartoon character to life, but in the premise of the show, he he Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes like Turbo Man to a degree, and so all of those kind of things, the Beethoven movies, they're all kind of classic kids movies that have a lot of energy and lighthearted, just like cartoons do. And so, fortunately, I just had a really, really good amount of guidance and direction on how to get there and what it should look like.
And when it is such a high energy movie, is the atmosphere on set like that as well?
I mean, it was for ours. I can't say for all because, I haven't, done any acting in quite a while, kinda gave that up a long time ago. Um, but yeah, on our sets, it was great, and there was everybody was just having fun all the time as much as we could. Obviously you have a budget, a production budget, you have deadlines to meet and everything, but no, for the most part the experiences there were amazing, and we always just tried to keep that energy and that fun going at all times.
And what was the dynamic like between you, Kate, Haley, and Robbie?
Honestly, I thought we got along great. Very different people, all of us. We all have our idiosyncrasies and quirks and everything else, and things that make us unique. But we all went into it pretty well. And what's really funny is that I don't know. I wouldn't even say that all of us who we are personally fit the characters to a T. But we all had that in us, obviously, and could bring it out. And yeah, just the dynamic between us, we were pretty close when we were filming. It was a lot of fun, and we always had a good time.
And who would you say you got closest with on set?
Probably, probably Katie. Katie and I have actually maintained a pretty good relationship, even now. I mean, we still kind of keep in touch every so often, and Robbie and Haley, I don't keep in touch with them as much. I don't know if Katie does. I'm still friends with both of them on Facebook, and I love seeing Robbie's posts. When he got married and now has a kid and everything. I was super happy for him, and obviously saw that. But yeah, Katie and I have got pretty close at the time and have remained pretty close as friends. It's really nice.
That's awesome. And did you get a chance to work with Frank Welker at all?
I did. I actually did get a chance to work. I think I was the only one that got to work with Frank Welker, which was crazy. And what a nice guy. Um, we were doing some ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. It's like after you actually shoot the scene, if for some reason the sound wasn't good on that particular clip, then you have to go in and they put you in this big, it's almost like a movie theater, like a private movie theater, and you have a little microphone and they'll play it back for you, and you have to repeat your lines as close to your mouth as you could. And while I was there, Frank Welker was also there. So I did get to meet him, and that was crazy. And I still have a picture with it somewhere in the deep recesses of my Facebook. Still have that picture with him. I think I put bunny ears on him because why not? Um, yeah. Have you know what Frank Welker has done, right? Like he's prodigious in the
Yes,
industry. Yeah.
definitely. What was it like to meet him?
Honestly, he's such a cool, down to earth guy. He didn't like there was no air of superiority. He just came at it with, again, all of that same kind of cartoon energy that you can have as a person, and which makes sense because he's been doing it forever. Um, but yeah, he made me feel like I had always been his friend. You know,
That is amazing.
really. Yeah, yeah, he's a cool guy.
And in both of the films, you got to work with some really great actors in the supporting roles, like Nichelle Nichols and Marion Ross, and et cetera, et cetera. Did you have a favorite to work with?
Jonathan Winters was a riot. Honestly, that guy was hilarious. Um, he he was sharp as an absolute tack, super witty, and yeah, that was a pretty cool one, um, to work with. Although the thing I will say, like the most freaked out I got, I guess, or starstruck of any, was on the Curse of the Lake Monster. The prop master, the guy that like had the prop truck and was using it. I randomly went into his truck to get something, and I think I ended up seeing the Freddy Krueger glove, like with the long claws and everything. And I don't like horror movies. I'm not a fan, but that's pretty famous. And I said, "Whoa, what is this? You just made a replica?" And he's like, "No, that's the one we actually used on Nightmare on Elm Street." And I
Oh
went,
my gosh.
"That's the real glove?" And he said, "Yeah." So, not a person, but that was awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I got to try it on, and I took a picture with it, and I still have that picture somewhere, but, um, yeah, that was pretty fun.
Awesome.
And did you know here, a little piece of trivia. Did you know, the guy that was, like, the stand-in, the mocap guy for Scooby on Curse of the Lake Monster, his name was Luke Youngblood? He was actually the announcer in the Quidditch matches in Harry Potter.
Awesome.
So, he was Scooby. I didn't even end up finding out till later because I'm more of a Lord of the Rings guy than a Harry Potter guy, but, I didn't find that out until I think, like, years after we filmed it, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's cool." So,
And out of both movies, or one for each if you had one, what is your favorite scene?
oh, um, hmm. Honestly, I think the first movie, by the way, I think is my favorite of the 2. The Mystery Begins really was for me, I enjoy watching it more. Might have something to do with the fact that, like, the singing in the second movie, I was like, I don't I don't love listening to myself on those ones. Um, uh, but the first movie where I just got to say, like, "Well, it's nice to meet you, Scooby-Doo," that makes me smile every time. Just because it's such a moment of purity. Like, that's that, right? It was when Shaggy met Scooby for all intents and purposes, of our timeline, and yeah, I really loved that scene.
Definitely, that is a good one.
And that shirt, by the way, with cloud the one that I was wearing with clouds, I got to keep that after filming. It actually felt like clouds. I don't have
Really?
it anymore because I think eventually it got some holes in it from the dryer or something. I had to throw it away. But like that shirt, I wore it for years as a pajama shirt because it was so comfy.
That is awesome.
Yep. Highly recommend getting one of those.
And was there a scene that was the most difficult to film?
There were a few. I really liked to do my own stunts in these movies, even though they were tough. Uh, just because it was more fun. So like everything from in the first movie where I fall through a almost Rube Goldberg type chain of events through into the trash can and then fall and then flop onto the principal's chair. Like I hurt myself a lot during that one. When I caught the frisbee in my mouth, I cut my mouth open on the frisbee.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
which wasn't fun. And then like the whole in Curse of the Lake Monster when I fell into the sand trap and had to pull myself out of it again. I remember having sand in my hair and I had to so much that I had to like wash my hair, I think practically 100 times that night to get it all out.
Oh
So
man.
yeah. Yeah, I mad respect for girls for having long hair, because mine wasn't even that long and just goodness gracious. It takes so much work.
Definitely. And what was it like to do the scenes where Scooby would be present?
Honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal to me. Uh he it would just they would they would bring out some like reference material to like show how the shadows and the light would affect his fur for CGI. And then they would bring out like this little stuffed one on usually they would like have it on a pole and you would interact with that during one of the takes and then after that you just interacted with nothing but you would just remember what the blocking and choreography was like from when you had the stuffed animal in there and just kind of go with that. And I mean fortunately I have a fairly good sense of imagination, so it wasn't that bad. I greatly enjoyed it.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that you got to keep the shirt, but was there anything else that you got to keep from the set of either of the movies?
Um, I mean, oh, you're saying, I mean, not really. It was mostly clothing, that I got to keep. Um, Memories, kept a lot of memories, but I don't know what else I would have kept per se. Can you give me an example?
Like Kate said, she got to keep her flippers from the scuba scene. And I think she said her parents have the little Huckleberry Hound bobblehead that was in the Mystery Machine.
Oh, interesting. Um, that's where that went. Damn that Kate. Uh, no. Um, I don't remember anymore. I remember that shirt. I remember there were a couple, like I took a jacket. I think I took a pair of pants. Um, I don't remember taking anything much beyond that. No. Oh, actually, we did get to keep our rollerblades from the second movie.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And I have a couple questions specifically from Mystery Begins here. What was it like to be able to film an origin story for Scooby Doo?
That was probably the part that tripped me out the most of the whole thing, was um, that it was an origin story. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the previous movies with Matt Lillard and Linda Cardellini and Freddie Prinze Jr. and um, those movies and Sarah Michelle Gellar, didn't they kind of have a little bit of an origin story to them? Like, didn't they touch on it a little bit?
I think like there was like a flashback scene that
Mostly in the second one with Scrappy, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, how these things go. It's not, you can't ever have one origin story. I mean, even if you ever read comics or any of that, comic books are known for having like multiple timelines and storylines for the same characters and heroes and everything. But seeing that this one was like the fully fleshed out, like the whole movie was about the origin, it was pretty cool and pretty intense. Because you know that that's probably going to become canon somewhat. And so I did feel a little bit of pressure from it from that standpoint. But just what was it like, filming the origin story? It was awesome. It was a really big honor.
And you mentioned the frisbee, but what was the filming process like for that montage after Shaggy meets Scooby, like where he like steals your sandwich and things like that?
Uh Wait, am I getting the movies mixed up? Okay, the montage. I remember. So there's the frisbee catch. There was the where I like ran around in circles and we were like holding each other's hands, kind of doing that. That was really awkward because that's harder to imagine. You can't because the physics involved in it is normally there'd be two bodies kind of pulling against each other and in such counterbalancing each other. Well, I didn't have a counterbalance, so I was kind of trying to like lean back as much as possible to make it look like there was a counterbalance, like Scoob was on the other end, but and then also jump in a circle sideways. That one was weird. Um, and then for the frisbee one, they did have me like they put me on a dolly and they rigged up this little thing that I like laid my chest on the dolly, and then the frisbee was on a big pole that had a motor on it, so it would still spin, and that's why it ended up cutting me because it had like kind of a sharp edge on the outside of the frisbee. But they just like pushed me towards it, and then I just had to catch it in my mouth. Um, yeah. So
Awesome. And in the scene where Shaggy and Scooby spend the night in the freezer and then they're frozen in the morning, like was that like blue look accomplished with makeup or CGI or how did they do that?
no, that was makeup. That was actually I fell asleep in the makeup chair on that one. Um, it was probably a good, geez, how many hours was I in the makeup chair for? I want to say it was at least 2 hours, probably probably more. My gut instinct says it was four, um, but yeah, I was in the makeup chair for a long time, and I just remember being really tired because I think we had shot late the night before, and so I said, "Hey, can I just pass out?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I did. And then I woke up and I looked and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm Mr. Freeze." It was cool though. It was fun.
Awesome. And then did you actually have to, like, walk around in that trash can for the disguise scene?
Oh man. Uh no, I don't think we did. I think they had other people walk in the trash cans for us, and then we just because I'm 6'1", I wouldn't have fit in that trash can. So then I think they just had it stationary, and they filmed us like opening up the lid, and then they just CGI'd it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for specifics for Curse of the Lake Monster, what were your first thoughts when you read the script with the, played up romances and the Velma being the witch storyline?
Um. Yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, they're really going here, huh? They're going like Shaggy and Velma, they're shipping it, like that's the whole thing. It surprised me, but I was like, sure, why not? Sounds like fun. It was a good script. I mean, the Altieri brothers are. It was. I I really liked their writing. So so yeah, I was just excited. I was excited to get to see everybody again after the hiatus we had previously, and um, yeah, I the script was great.
With a character who's as awkward as your version of Shaggy is, what was it like to act Shaggy when he's being really interested in Velma?
I mean, again, it goes back to that innocence thing, and like, look, well, anybody who's old enough has had a first crush, and like what that felt like. Um, I remember, man, I remember. I mean, my first crush was a girl named Joanna. I was 6 years old, living in San Pedro at the time. My dad was Navy, so he was stationed out here, and she was my first crush, and like I remember still kind of the innocence I felt in that, and I think I think at one point we even like played Sleeping Beauty, and I think I kissed her and woke her up, right? And this is like I'm 6 years old. It's not a real kiss, but still technically my first kiss. And so it kind of just like I went back to that and the innocence of that moment, and like even though I had a crush and there's quote unquote romantic feelings as much as a 6 year old can have, um, I kind of just went to that and put that forward for what Shaggy could experience too in his first crush.
Perfect.
Yeah. This is gonna be really weird, by the way, if Joanna happens to remember me and now she like hears this interview and goes, "Oh my gosh, he remembers when we were 6." That's gonna be weird,
Maybe just a little bit.
right?
And at the beginning of the movie, there's Shaggy's like dream sequence after school gets out. Shaggy does the limbo. Can you do the limbo?
So I'm actually well, maybe not as much anymore because now I'm 32 and like you know, I'm practically over the hill at this point. Um, but yeah, no, I was always pretty good, flexible wise as far as back bends go and everything. So I'd like to say I'm pretty good at the limbo.
Awesome.
Why do you want to challenge me? Is it
Sure.
going down, Alexa?
Sure.
Bring it.
And what was your reaction when you found out about the various different musical numbers that were in The Curse of the Lake Monster?
Yeah. So again, I like to consider myself a singer. Like, I actually really enjoy singing. I've been told I have a good voice. And so I was excited about it at first. But then they said, well, the first one, we're going to have you do it in the Shaggy voice. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. That's going to be tough. And then the second one, the I Can Be Scared With You one, originally I liked the sound. They had like a test run of it that they did through a guy that was like actually good at that genre of music. Um, and it sounded great. I loved it. And then they said, well, you guys are going to film or record it. And I was like, what? That's way higher than my vocal register, man. And they were like, we'll make it work. And I'm glad they made it work. It's not my favorite thing to listen to my own voice on, but you know what? Yeah, um so I don't know. I mean, I was down with the idea. It was a lot tougher than I expected.
And what was it like to try and sing in the Shaggy voice?
As I said, it was not something I was used to doing. Um, but at the same time, I mean, since that, I and I've kind of always liked doing voices, but since doing that and becoming comfortable with it and everything, I now just love doing voices in general. I tell a lot of jokes. It's one of my favorite things to do is make other people laugh. And if you ever get a story or a joke where, well, an Irishman, a Spaniard, and a Frenchman walk into a bar, it helps so much more when you're able to do some semblance of an accent on all of them. And then, like, even for my daughter, because I have a daughter, but even for her, when I'm reading stories with her, when we're reading books together, I do what my dad did for me, and I always make a different voice for each of the characters and like really kind of bring the world to life. And she has this stuffed animal whose name is Rainbow Bunny, and I've made a whole persona for him. He's sarcastic and uh, you know kind of rude at times, but he's a silly little thing. And she honestly sometimes she'll even not want to talk to me. She'll just want to talk to him. So like, yeah, no, I'm serious. Sometimes she'll be like, "Dad, can I talk to Rainbow Bunny?" And I'm like, "But." And then I'll be like, "Yeah, sure." And so then she'll end up just having an hour-long conversation with me as Rainbow Bunny. It's a thing.
That's
So
adorable.
like, yeah, so I'm really grateful for, the Scooby-Doo thing and really getting me comfortable with doing voices and being silly.
And can you also play instruments as well? Because there's a lot of sequences with you playing ukulele and guitar and various different things.
There's a lot of sequences with me faking it. Absolutely. No, man, I really wish I could play the piano. And I actually maybe can play a little bit. Like, I'm fairly comfortable on the piano. Again, being a singer, I can at least sight read music. Um, I'm not good by any stretch of the imagination, but no, I'm not. The instrument I play is the trachea, so to speak.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And I was brushing up on my research here. So in the special features on the DVD, you mentioned that you have quite a bit of rollerblading experience. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I learned actually also in San Pedro is when I learned to rollerblade, when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And then later in my teenage years, I actually bought a pair of like aggressive skates, and I would go to the skate park and grind rails and, go up and down the half pipe or whatever and do whatever tricks I could do. I didn't get great at it, but I've rollerbladed a lot. I've skied and water skied, and so yeah, I felt pretty comfortable on them.
Awesome. Was it an easy transition then to go to dancing on rollerblades?
Definitely not. That's totally different. But I definitely had it easier than Katie. I'm sure if you asked her that question, she probably told you about it.
Yes.
Um, she did not like her time on the rollerblades or on the roller skates. Oh, Katie Kate.
Um, and out of all the musical numbers, do you have a favorite? Including the like side musical numbers with like the rap and the other sequences.
Um, you know what? I really did like "By the Light of the Silvery Moon" because even though it's weird and it was tough to do, singing in the voice and everything, at the same time, it's just so sweet and so pure. That whole sequence and dreamy and everything. I mean, kind of has a similar feel, I guess, to Moulin Rouge, where during that sequence, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Not "Come What May." What is? I forget the song. But like, there's the whole floating on the clouds and all of that. Uh, just just pure and lovey-dovey and happy.
And what was it like to go into a recording studio to record the songs and doing the rehearsals for the choreography?
Um, I mean, that felt pretty normal. It's just all par for the course for an actor, right? Certain things we just kind of have to do and get used to doing. And recording studios were definitely different. But if you've ever done any sort of vocal work or voiceover work or anything, it wasn't too bad for me. I mean, Haley was a pro at it, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think felt really comfortable because it was the four of us together, and so it wasn't weird.
Perfect. And I wanted to talk about the stunts a little bit more. Were there any that you didn't do?
Um, Honestly, I think I did. I think maybe no, that wasn't even me. That was Robbie. Uh, I'm sure if I went back and watched the movies again, that I could maybe pick out a few that I didn't do. But off the top of my head, I think that I probably did all of my own,
Awesome.
with maybe the exception of one or two. But I don't remember what they would be. I'm just trying to give myself a buffer zone in case I'm wrong.
And was there any that took like a ridiculous amount of takes to get right?
The sand one took a lot of takes. The trash can one took a lot of takes. Those are the two biggest. Um, yeah, I don't think anything else really took a lot of takes. It was just those two that were pretty difficult. Lots of different. I think they shot a couple different camera angles on them, and each angle we did quite a few takes of. So, yeah, it might also just be that those were the most rigorous and potentially painful ones, because like one time the trash can fell over and they were pulling it with like a steel bar, and so like it fell over forwards, and so I toppled over forwards and my spine went straight into the steel bar, which wasn't a lot of fun.
Ugh.
So maybe I'm just remembering the pain and thinking that it took more takes than it did. Who knows?
And does it take a lot of confidence to be able to, throw yourself into that trash can?
I guess you could call it that. Um, yeah, no, you just do what you have to do. When the director says do it, you do it. And I mean, again, I was raised by a military guy, so when my dad said jump, I said, "How high, sir?" Um, always used to taking direction. So yeah, I wouldn't say confidence. I just say willingness.
Definitely. What was it like to be able to recreate those more classic Scooby gags in the second film with, like unmasking some classic villains and the I can be scared with you sequence and like running through the doors?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was very cognizant of it happening when it was happening, and we all just enjoyed it thoroughly because yeah, I mean, those are classic gags, and so it was fun. It was fun shooting them, but most of that stuff, the magic's done in post, and so it was way more fun seeing it put together at the end. Um, yeah, the payoff was much better there.
Definitely. And what was your favorite thing about being part of a Scooby-Doo project?
Honestly, uh, I mean, at the time, I have to say I was more focused on myself and what it could possibly mean for my career and all that stuff. But in the subsequent years, and ever since that movie coming out, or even our first premiere, which we had a premiere in a theater over in like Glendale, Pasadena area, and seeing all of the people so excited about it, or even when we went to Comic Con and people were lining up at our booth just to get autographs, and um, I think that was the biggest payoff for me. The biggest part of excitement about the whole thing was seeing how many people got smiles because of something that I did. Um, Even just a few years ago, um, I was transacting business with a person, and he recognized me, and he said, "Oh my gosh, wait, Nick, are you the?" I just have to ask, are you the guy that did Scooby Doo? And I was like, yeah. And he said, you have no idea how much joy you've brought to my family. And like that that's crazy. And now I have this a fan on YouTube by the name of Simon, and he just seeing him and like how much I was able to like give him inspiration and everything through something that I don't even really consider a big deal for myself. It was just I was doing a job and having fun doing it. I think that was what really made the whole experience for me.
And what was it like to be part of a franchise that has such a legacy? Did you ever think about it and how it would still resonate today?
Uh yeah, a little bit. Being part of a franchise that has the kind of clout that Scooby-Doo does is cool. And I think that more people have been to the moon than have played Shaggy. Um, which is kind of just like a cool little factoid I sometimes throw around. Um, but but yeah, it I don't know if it ever really manifested in a big way that I considered it would, um, because it is such a big franchise. So I think that it just feels kind of normal to me now.
And why do you think that Scooby-Doo, which is, just at its core a cartoon about a mystery solving dog, why do you think it's held up for over 50 years?
um, I think I think partially because it transcends generations. The adult generation sees it as something from their childhood, and um, kids today now see it as something from their childhood. And I think the fact that it's just continued to go on and on because it's innocent and fun and happy, and all ages can agree on it. I think that brings a lot of people together, um, and that's what it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. Your parents have good memories of it, so they then teach it to you, and then you then teach it to your kids, and as long as it's still on there, it just keeps going.
Definitely. And there was supposed to be a third and possibly fourth film, I think, after Lake Monster. And even though you're not involved with acting anymore, if they suddenly called you wanting to reboot like an adult version of your cast, would you take it?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely I would. um if nothing else, just to have all that fun again. um and get to see Robbie and catch up with Robbie and Haley, and as I said, I keep in touch with Katie, um but yeah, just to have that experience. And I mean, why not? I mean, would you?
Oh, I totally would.
See, I don't think anybody would turn that down. That'd be ridiculous.
I think that covers all of the questions that I had for you here. Is there anything else that you wanted to add at all?
No, this was a pretty big interview. I feel like we covered a lot of topics. And yeah, I mean, if you feel like you've gotten everything, I certainly feel like I've shared. So yeah, no, I think I'm good.
Perfect. And just before we end, do you have anything at all that you want to promote or any ways that people might be able to get in touch with you if they wanted to?
Um, no, I mean, I don't really have anything to promote, because again, I'm not really doing the acting thing anymore. Um, I would just say, in light of all the craziness that's happening around the world right now with COVID-19 and everything, I just, encourage everyone to kind of take this time to learn what it's the antithesis of divides. I can't think of the word right now, but what unites us. There we go. Uh, Take this time to learn what unites us and what really makes us all the same as people, and not focus so much on what divides us. Because that just again is going to be more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The further we go into division, the easier it is to be even more divided and create a bigger dichotomy. So yeah, that's all I'd say.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to come up with all the questions and chat with me as well.
And that concludes today's episode. Another huge thank you to Nick Palatas for taking the time out to chat with me. For more groovy content, be sure to check at Unmasked SD on Twitter, at Unmasked SD Podcast on Instagram or at unmaskedsdpodcast.com. You can also find the podcast on Facebook under the Unmasked History of Scooby-Doo podcast. If you like this episode and want to hear more, also make sure to check those social media channels or the website. Or you can listen to older episodes wherever you like to get your podcast fix. Thanks for listening, and keep an ear out for the next episode. Scooby-Dooby-Doo!